Hello, I'm Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and in this episode, I want to explore a notion that I recently heard, which is that the modern dilemma when you're hanging out with somebody is you have to be more interesting than their phone. Think about that. That's a very powerful statement, and I really want to unpack that. But before I do, I would like to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. That way you get all the various lessons and episodes that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you just did, and thank you if you already were. It truly does mean a lot to me, so I hope it does to you. So let's really unpack this. The reason I thought about this, and one, to me, it resonates as a true statement, a very powerful statement. And as someone that creates content and puts it out, right, what we're essentially vying for is people's attention, right? And so therefore, in a lot of ways, right, when something is successful, they're going to be looking at it most likely from their phone, right? At least a majority of the time, right? And so in a weird sense, that's good because it means they're watching our stuff. It's bad because we're essentially contributing to this. And in that sense, it puts a lot of pressure, on friendships, right? I don't know about you, but for me, whenever I hang out with friends, I make a very conscious effort to not look at my phone. Even if it's ding and so forth, I just kind of leave it off in the corner. Now, part of it is I hang out with my friends during off work hours, right? So I know that nothing urgent is happening that would need my attention. Secondly, if it is urgent, people know mostly to call me. So, if I get a phone call, then yes, I'll look at it. But if it's just ding because it's text message, that's a whole separate thing. And by the way, for me, I just as a tangent to this whole thing, I make a very conscious effort to only have phone calls and text messages enabled on my phone. So that way I don't get all the superfluous notifications of emails and other stuff that I really don't need, in the moment. And it does bother me when other people are checking their phone. If someone goes up to go to the bathroom and things like that, and there's a little bit of a lull in the conversation, then I might check my phone and be like, okay, cool. What do we got? Just to kind of make sure the world is not on fire, so to speak. But beyond that, I try to show a respect to the other people that I'm hanging out with, especially, even before this, but especially with the pandemic where we couldn't really hang out with various people, that reshuffled my mindset of how important it is to hang out with people. And so when I'm with them, I want to be with them, not with my phone, because I can be with them on or somebody else on my phone at any given point, right? And luckily, I have friends that display, for the most part, that same courtesy. And the people I generally don't hang out with as much tend to be more on their phones. And that does irk me. And, there's no real point to this episode other than to kind of really explore this and think about it in your own personal terms and perhaps draw some boundaries and so forth. Because, for me, I don't want to have to compete for someone's attention. If they really don't want, if they find whatever's on their phone to be more interesting than hanging out with me, then so be it. Let them. They're not the person for me. I want them to want to hang out with me. If we make, a desire to hang out, then boom. Now, of course, emergencies and things like that come up. I'm not saying like that. But in general, like someone doesn't need to be checking social media or texting back right away for superfluous stuff. When we're in each other's presence, and not that I define it in this sort of way. I don't like make a proclamation, but the people I hang, it seems to be of equal value. That like when we're hanging out, and it's about the group rather than what's on our phones. And I appreciate that and try to cultivate that very much so. And I think, one of the things, how you can cultivate that is to be an example of that, right? I did a recent episode about the idea of, ultimately we can only control ourselves, but that doesn't mean we don't have influence over other people. And so, the best way to do anything is to be an example of it, right? Talk is cheap, as they say. And so if you yourself are exemplifying that, then that can send a positive message. And when you're doing that, it makes you a lot more present with the other person. Therefore, it's engaging and they won't want to be on their phone. I think, again, the notion that spawned this entire dialogue was the modern dilemma when hanging out is, how do I be more interesting than someone else's cell phone? And the answer really to that is by being present with them, engage with them, converse with them. And, I think in a lot of ways I always like to look at myself and take ownership in myself. And so if someone is checking their phone, yeah, that means I'm less interesting, and it means I've forgotten how to communicate properly, so that way they are interested in what I have to say. And I don't mean that in the sense that I'm just talking about myself and, yapping away stories and so forth, but more so from the standpoint of making it about them and really having a back and forth dialogue rather than just a monologue, if you will, right? Where it's as interesting to them, and that's the key. How do you engage with them? So part of that is understanding them, getting to know them, picking up on certain habits, of what they would appreciate, right? And seeing what are the, I don't mean this negatively, but what are the trigger words? Okay, so if they're fans of movies, or specifically comedy movies, or they love food, or whatever it may be, picking up on that and honing in on it. And if you're an artist, I think that's a wonderful skill to have, because it just makes you more aware of your surroundings, which, of course, when you see reality for what it is, you can put it into your work, whatever that may be, right? Whether it's poetry, music, painting, movies, writing, doesn't matter. And beyond that, too, it's also a great practice to have, because at the end of the day, all of us have to present our work or pitch our work. And so, the real skill set of that is to make it as engaging as possible. And this is a way to train yourself for those moments, right? If you really think about it from that perspective. And, so ultimately, there's goodness to be found in here by having to compete with someone else's cell phone, rather than just lament about it. And, that's the way in which I think about that. And again, part of it is also cultivating those boundaries and those friendships, where I lean towards people who share this value of mine, this principle of mine, right? We can argue about tons of other stuff, but that's what makes the conversation engaging, therefore not on their cell phone. I hope this was helpful. I hope it opened up your mind to thinking about this and, thinking about your own life, how this applies and ways you want to tackle it. As always, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and any questions you may have. Please comment down below or hit me up on social media at Svitek. I truly appreciate you and love having those dialogues and diving deeper beyond just what I present in these episodes. To that effect, I have restructured my Patreon page to allow for more meaningful interactions. And so, if you'd like to check that out, the link is below. It's just patreon.com/PhilSvitek. And, obviously your support means the world to me, and there in turn I can deliver even more value to you. I would like to make mention that I recently, my debut novel has been officially released. The link for that is below. It's on Amazon. If you just search my name, it'll come up, as well as my movie Love Market, as well as my nonfiction book, Master Mental Fortitude, and all that. So these are just some of the ways you can support me. But of course, just you watching already means the world to me. So thank you. These are just if you want to go beyond that. Anyway, I appreciate you and I hope to see you next time.